right into it. This R. Kelly thing. Whoa. Whoa. Let's dig deeper, though. We don't want to just hit the surface stuff. We know he's dealing with some surface stuff, but there's some deeper things that's involved in this situation that I think that we should, just really look into for our community. And the question is, how has the focus on R. Kelly impacted the country? Shawnee Red.
Man, there's so many angles in so many different ways. But for one, it's almost like I'm seeing this outrage, but I'm not seeing the outrage internally.
Oh, wow.
I'm seeing an outrage for people externally. There's always this expectation for law enforcement and for all of these things. Where were law enforcement when this was going on with the children? Who was present when this was going on with the children? Yes. And I think we fail to internally begin to look at the process and understand what's going on. Who is he surrounded by? First of all, we all knew this man had issues. He's been thinking about his issues for how long? Yeah. He married a 14-year-old girl. We all knew that, but we were still stepping in the name of love a couple of years later. While the trial was going on, she went on about her business, but we were still impacted by his music. We still bought it. We still played it. We looked over these girls. So I am really getting upset about no one looking at internally what was going on. He was surrounded by people that looked just like him, and who did what.
Yeah.
I didn't see any policemen sitting in those rooms on camera, or I didn't see any policemen that were doing his tours. I didn't see any policeman that was braiding his hair. I didn't see any policeman that was bringing his food when he had those runners. I saw people that looked like us in there when it came down to it. So why are we not placing the responsibility where it should be initially? Because it could have been stopped. Did you see on the interview when they were talking about the teacher, when he was riding around the schools and they were like, you need to stop coming up to these schools? Where did someone interject themselves and say, don't come back up to the school, boy?
Not even just say, don't come back up to the school, but they should have taken action more than just that. I think one of the things we talked about that I thought was interesting, right, is sort of, we talk about it all begins with the family. So a lot of these girls that were violated, had family members present or people who were caregivers charged with the responsibility for ensuring their well-being. And none of them did their job, right? I mean, we talked about, I think internally off the record earlier about how with Aaliyah, like her father was in the band or something like that. Was it Aaliyah?
That was
Sparkle's niece.
Mm-hmm.
Father's in the band, right? And it's like, what? Like if you don't, your job as a parent is to always protect your kids. And you as a parent know your kids better than anybody. So you would know if you see some dude looking at your daughter some type of way. Like I know with my younger sister, I mean, I don't ever think that she's a grown woman. And quite frankly, she's 28 years old right now. And I still look at her like she's 10 and she reminds me that she's not. And she's married and has kids.
Yes, you do. You need help.
But I'm looking at her and I'm like, but if someone, she was to call me today and was to tell me that something, sour was going on in her office, it wouldn't even be a blink. Right, I am showing up. My cousin like to say, blowing up spot. I am showing up, handling business, and that's the end of the conversation. Mm-hmm. Right? Y'all may be hollering me off the court or something like that.
No, you're going to jail for court.
That's true. Jail before court. But and she's grown. But we have. I think in our family, we are very protective. Like it's one of those things. Like I can talk about my family, but you better not. So if that's how we are when it comes to people talking about our mamas. You can't talk about my mama. Why aren't we ready to go up arms and handle and protect our kids like we should? So I agree with you. It begins with us. It's probably one of a few times I will.
I feel so blessed.
But also what we learned from the documentary was that not only was Sparkle's niece's father in the band, but he remained in the band, according to the docuseries, even afterwards. So it's like, you're almost agreeing with.
He pimped his daughter.
Oh, come on.
Speak on it.
Let's keep it real.
Flip went on with lack of pimp. Like, his fool pimped his daughter.
Pretty much.
He prostituted his daughter. That's what he did.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty much what happened. If you think about it from that perspective, and I think a lot of people in our community are thinking about it from that perspective, but we're also thinking about it, as you said, from the you were speaking from the internal side, Shawnee Red, was that not only about who was there, but we also see all these artists that are coming out who have spent time with him, who have been in his studio, who have recorded with the so-called Piper, and they have seen things. You know, we're now going back, and I've seen people go back, like they're on YouTube right now, and they're pulling up old clips of old interviews where the artists are saying he was in there with a 14-year-old girl on radio, but nobody even took any additional steps to go, okay, we need to go check and see what's going on over here. You have the police department that's going up to the door, and they was like, well, we can't, just force our way in because, there's suspicions or allegations of 14-year-old girls. What?
Hold on. This fool goes by the Pied Piper. Now, I ain't the brightest star in the sky, but I remember from like your childhood books, right? The Pied Piper was the person who would play the pipe and take the little kids away.
They never be seen again.
And never to be seen again. So he been acknowledging that he got the proclivity for touchy-touchy.
Yes, he has acknowledged that because he said he didn't see nothing wrong.
With a little bit of what?
Yes.
Bump and grind.
And age was not a number.
And throwing down wasn't nothing but a thing.
I'm just saying, like, he's never was secretive about it. He says it in his songs, the Pied Piper. Like, yo, are you kidding me?
But how many things have we heard about this industry? Let's be real. If you just spread it all the way across the board, I'm not just talking about music, I'm talking about Hollywood in general. Once you enter into this, no one's hands are clean. You have to be a certain type of person to enter into this industry to begin with. That's what I think. There's a whole lot of compromise when you're going into this industry. A lot of times you're going to have to close your eyes and close your ears, quote, if you want to make it. So let's be clear. These things have been known to happen. How many casting couches incidents have we heard about back from Audrey Hepburn's days? Yes. I mean, nothing has really changed. It's just the fact now what has brought it to light. What is the focus now? And people want to turn it into a race thing. It's not a race thing that brought this to the forefront. That has nothing to do with it. It's like, oh, well, now because he's black. No, it's because he was molesting little girls. And now he has an entire harem that apparently and allegedly he's given diseases off to that are incurable. That's what brought it about. Someone decided and said, you know what? Most likely this is not going to be a popular opinion, but I don't care. When the money runs out,
right,
then the conversations want to be had.
Yes.
And I think that's what happened. When the money started running low, when people got of age and he was no longer paying them to keep their secrets, when the families were no longer being compensated, then all of a sudden, this is the day of social media. This is the day of reality TV. This is the day everyone wants to get on. Everyone wants to get famous. Now, I'm not taking away from real victims. I'm talking about the Pissy Pied Piper. I'm talking about R. Kelly. And the bottom line is there are so many different things that we have done that have allowed this. So why now? That's what I want to know. Why now? That's the question. And that's what we're talking about. You know why? There's so many different reasons. Number one, financially. Number two, you can be famous for doing anything these days.
Right.
Yes.
Infamous, famous, and people will grab onto you because now you're a moneymaker. Their concern is not you, but what it is that you can supply and what it is that you can do for them. So they got a whole series on this. So now these girls are doing interviews. They're writing books. They're building their brands off of being victims of an alleged pedophile.
But I don't even think it's doing, I'm sorry, KO, 2 syllables. I'm gonna jump in and jump out real quick. But I don't even think it's them. I think they're the victims. I don't even think the victims are really are the ones that's really going after sort of the financial gain. I think it's someone else that's pulling the strings that are using these victims as puppets, right? But, like, how would they know to be writing the book? You know what I'm saying? Like, or some of those things. I mean, I don't mean it in like a negative way, but sort of like someone that says, oh, you can take this story. You could really take it to the news, or you can, if you put it in a book, you're going to be able to sell it. You'll be able to have a speaking tour. I'm thinking of someone else that's pushing them to do this. And I guess I'm sort of curious to know who's sort of like their representative, like who their PR person.
This is the age of social media and, quote, reality TV. They don't need they don't need anyone to represent them. You got girls who started out twerking on Instagram and now they got 2 million followers. No one was representing them. They were representing themselves. So all they've done is just taken away the pimp out the game.
Wow.
That's what has happened. You don't need representation now. Of course, when you take off in order to expand, quote, expand your brand, there's the representation. But these women have been doing this on their own.
With the books, though, you think?
With
you really
the
think
books,
it's
Superhead. Y'all remember Superhead?
Hello.
Y'all remember Superhead?
I don't know Superhead. Yeah, you know, I'm the nerd of the group, right?
Okay, well, Superhead, she was a video vixen.
Okay.
Okay, back in the day, all the rappers' videos. All of a sudden, she turned all of her escapades into a book.
Oh, wow.
And I don't think she was the first one. If you really think back, we can go all the way back to Marilyn Monroe. She didn't write a book, but she built a brand on being a side chick.
Yes.
Let's be clear. She built a brand on it. You don't need representation. You don't need PR. You don't need any of that. They got email. You can make a Gmail and you can book yourself for whatever it is that you want to book yourself for.
I guess
you
so.
don't
You're right.
need it now. This is the day where you can Google how to be an Instagram model. And you're on and popping. All you have to do is do these 5 steps. Look at WikiHow. WikiHow will tell you how to do. WikiHow will tell you how to perform a surgery. Okay? Why do you don't need anyone?
And for a disclaimer, please do not perform any surgeries from WikiHow. If you're not a licensed practice physician that's in the medical field, get clearance, everybody. Get clearance. We don't want you to say that the conversation told us to go and start performing surgeries on individuals in our community because WikiHow taught us how to do that. No, that's not the conversation. So let's go back to the conversation. That was just a small disclaimer. Every once in a while, you need a commercial.